The blackness of space stretched endlessly above Earth's orbit. Its oceans shimmered under sunlight, but the surface below bore the scars of conquest. Cities that had once hummed with human life now lay quiet or filled with alien occupation. The Varn Dominion had declared victory over Earth long ago, believing humanity broken and scattered. But above the blue planet, the human fleet waited, invisible to the Dominion's sensors, hidden in the shadow of the moon. Hundreds of ships rebuilt from wreckage, armed with clever technology, and led by minds that refused to surrender, formed a silent armada. At the forefront of the fleet was the Horizon's Edge, its sleek hull reflecting faint starlight. On its bridge, Commander Elise Ward stood with Captain Arden and her closest officers. The tension in the room was palpable. "This is it," Elise said quietly, her voice calm but filled with purpose. The moment the Varn thought would never come, Arden nodded. "We've come a long way. Every system we liberated, every ally we found, every battle we won, it all leads to this. Are you ready?" Elise's hand rested on the console. "We're not just ready. We're human, and humanity doesn't stop." First contact in the orbit above Earth, the Varn fleet waited, massive and arrogant, stretching across the horizon. Their massive vessels glinted with light, each one bristling with weapons and automated systems. They expected a simple victory. Humans had no resources, no weapons, no chance. High General Arthur watched from the bridge of his flagship, Vorath's Pride. Reports of human activity in the outer sectors had reached him, but he dismissed them. "Until now, they're here," he hissed, his silver-scaled hand gripping the console. "All of them. And they approach with precision, not chaos." An aide leaned forward nervously. "Sir, they could be trapped." Rithor shook his head. "No, humans never fight the way we expect. Prepare for engagement." The Varn fleet activated shields and weapons, confident in victory. But as they looked at the horizon, a faint glimmer appeared. Then another, and another. Hundreds of human ships emerged from the moon's shadow, a fleet born from hope and determination, ready to reclaim what was theirs. The human advantage. The Varn fired first, energy beams slicing through space. But human ships moved with impossible agility. Stealth technology and hybrid engines allowed them to appear, disappear, and reappear at unexpected angles. Elise directed the Horizon's Edge expertly. "Flank the right side. Use the debris field for cover. Harris, scramble their sensors." The human fleet responded flawlessly, a coordinated dance of strategy and precision. Each attack was carefully planned. Each maneuver anticipated the enemy's reactions. Captain Arden piloted a squadron that targeted the Varn's communications arrays. Without these, the Dominion ships couldn't coordinate, leaving them vulnerable. "Enemy signals disrupted," Arden reported. "They can't communicate with each other effectively." Elise smiled faintly. "Exactly as planned. Keep pushing." Small bursts of energy, clever hacking, and human ingenuity began to turn the tide. Ships that were meant to be invincible drifted powerless, their systems jammed, unable to respond to the fleet's coordinated attack. Turning the tide on the flagship Vorath's Pride, General Arthur watched in disbelief. His weapons fired, but human ships vanished before the beams reached them. Systems failed. Sensors misled. Every move the Varn made was countered. "They've learned our technology," he hissed. "How is this possible?" An officer whispered, "Sir, these humans, they are not ordinary. They are evolving faster than our expectations." Rithor's eyes narrowed. "Then it is time to end this. Directly." He activated the planetary lockdown system, attempting to trap the human fleet in orbit above Earth. Massive energy nets began to form, encircling the planet. Elise watched the monitors. "They're trying to trap us," she said. "But they forget. Humans find ways where none exist." She pressed a series of commands. Ships that seemed cornered used hidden propulsion bursts, twisting through gaps in the energy nets. The Horizon's Edge led the way, drawing fire while smaller vessels snuck through, targeting weak points. The Varn had expected compliance, but humans refused. They did not follow the expected path. They created one, Earth reclaimed as the battle raged in orbit. Human forces began descending toward Earth. Shuttles and small fighter craft struck Dominion installations, reclaiming critical stations and disabling control nodes. Each victory was precise and deliberate. No lives lost unnecessarily. From the surface, humans watching the sky could see faint glimmers of the returning fleet. Word spread quickly, not just through survivors on Earth but across colonies and outposts. Humanity was returning. Children pointed at the sky. Workers paused their labor. Scientists monitoring orbital data whispered in awe. Humanity, thought to be extinct, was stepping forward once more. Elise's voice echoed across the command channels. Every station, every city, every sector, we reclaim it. The Varn will see that Earth is not theirs to hold. The surrender after hours of strategic strikes, the Varn fleet faltered. Their ships drifted powerless, unable to maintain formation. The humans had used intelligence, adaptability, and bravery to overcome the overwhelming numbers. General Arthur watched his flagship fail. His massive energy shields flickered and systems failed one by one. He realized finally that the humans had done what no one else could. They had outsmarted him. From the horizon's edge, Elise sent a communication directly to Arthur. General, your fleet is disabled. Your systems fail. The humans are home. Stand down and we can ensure the safety of your people. Arthur stared at the message, the weight of defeat heavy on his shoulders. No words came. Finally, he nodded and ordered the remaining ships to power down. For the first time, humans stood victorious above their homeworld without firing a single unnecessary shot. The galaxy had witnessed a species that had been crushed, and yet refused to vanish. Humanity's triumph. The human fleet landed carefully on Earth. From the orbiting stations to scattered continents, humanity returned to reclaim what was theirs. Cities were slowly freed, infrastructure repaired, and communities reunited. Commander Elise walked through the first liberated city, surrounded by cheering humans and alien allies who had joined the cause. Children ran through streets that had once been silent, waving flags of Earth. Captain Arden joined her, smiling. You led them here, he said. They believed because you believed, Elise shook her head. We all led them. Every person who survived, every human who refused to give up. We all took a step forward. The sky above Earth was no longer dark with fear. Ships from the human fleet as well as allied species glimmered against the stars, a testament to courage and unity. A message to the galaxy. Elise knew the Varn Dominion would not forget this day. Across the galaxy, news spread. Humans, thought destroyed, had returned. They had used brains over brawn, courage over fear, and ingenuity over despair. Her voice went out on open channels, broadcast to every listening species. We are humans. You may have conquered our world, but you can never conquer our spirit. We rise because we must. We rise because we believe. And we rise because we will never be broken. The message echoed across countless systems. Some cheered, some trembled, and some, like the Varn, realized they had misjudged the smallest blue planet in the galaxy. The step forward Elise stood on Earth's surface. Looking at the horizon where human ships glimmered in the sky, she breathed deeply. After months in hiding, after battles across the stars, after long nights of planning and repair, humanity had taken the greatest step forward. Commander, Arden said softly, what now? Elise looked at the sky, at the fleet above, at the planet they had reclaimed. She smiled, quietly but firmly. Now, she said, we rebuild. We protect what is ours, and we remind the galaxy that, no matter the odds, humans will always rise. Somewhere in the distance, an alien observer whispered to their companion. They took one step forward, and the stars themselves followed. The galaxy had witnessed it. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer broken. Humanity had returned, and the universe would never forget the day the humans stepped forward. The red sky of Epsilon 4 burned like a dying flame. Smoke drifted from shattered towers, broken ships, and ruined tanks. The ground was black and cracked from the heat of plasma fire. What had once been a proud human outpost was now nothing more than a graveyard. Alien banners rose over the battlefield. The Varn Dominion, a species known for its strength and discipline, stood among the wreckage. Their tall, armored figures moved with military precision. Their metallic skin reflected the weak sunlight as they walked past the bodies of fallen humans. Commander Drexel Varn, leader of the Dominion assault force, stood on the highest point of the ridge. His yellow eyes glowed with pride as he surveyed the battlefield below. Around him, his soldiers cheered in their deep, echoing voices. The human resistance is finished, one of them said. They fought well, another added, but their time among the stars ends today. Drexel raised a hand, silencing them. No, he said. They fought bravely, but bravery without strength means nothing. The humans have lost. He turned his gaze to the fallen flag of the United Earth Fleet that lay torn beside a burned-out defense cannon. The humans had defended this outpost for 3 days against overwhelming odds. But now, silence had claimed the battlefield, or so they believed. Beneath the ruins of a collapsed bunker, a faint light flickered. A cracked helmet visor reflected the smoke-filled sky. Inside the damaged armor, Captain Mira Kane lay motionless. Her breathing was shallow, her ribs ached, and her entire body screamed with pain. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious. The last thing she remembered was the final assault, the bright flash when the enemy breached the wall, the screams of her squad, and the deafening explosion that sent her flying into darkness. Now as she opened her eyes, all she could hear was the distant sound of alien voices and the crackle of fire. Her vision blurred for a moment before clearing. The battle was over. She could see Dominion soldiers moving among the wreckage, collecting human weapons and scanning for survivors. Her heart pounded. She knew what they did to survivors. They wouldn't show mercy. Slowly, carefully, she moved her hand. Her gauntlet was cracked, but it still worked. She pressed a button on her wrist pad. The small display blinked weakly, no signal. Her communications were dead. Come on, she whispered, voice hoarse. Don't quit on me now. The pad flickered again, showing only static. The command channel was silent. There were no signs of friendly units nearby. She was alone. Mira gritted her teeth and tried to push herself up, but pain shot through her shoulder, forcing her to stop. She took a slow breath, trying not to make any sound. The Dominion patrol was close. She could hear their footsteps. One of them, a tall alien with a long plasma rifle, walked past her hiding spot. His armor gleamed red in the light of the fires. He stopped, scanning the area. Mira held her breath, her heart racing. The alien's glowing eyes swept across the ruins. His scanner beeped once, detecting faint movement. He frowned, raising his weapon. Mira stayed perfectly still. The alien took a step closer, his shadow falling across her helmet. For a long moment he stood there, uncertain. Then his communicator buzzed. "Sector clear?" a voice asked through static. "Yes," the soldier replied after a pause. "Only the dead remain." He turned and walked away. Mira exhaled slowly, her chest tight with relief. She waited until the footsteps faded before sitting up against the broken wall. Her armor systems showed critical damage. Her oxygen supply was low and her energy reserves almost empty. She looked around. The battlefield was a wasteland. Dozens of human ships lay shattered, their wings twisted and smoking. The Dominion had destroyed everything, but Mira's training whispered in her mind. No battle is over until the last soldier stops fighting. Her fingers brushed against the dirt and found the cold metal of her rifle. It was cracked in half. The power cell was missing. She tossed it aside and searched her belt. Her sidearm was still there, though the display showed only 1 round left. 1 bullet, she muttered. Better than none. She looked toward the horizon. The Dominion command post stood there, a large triangular structure built from their dropships. Energy shields surrounded it, glowing faintly in the dusty air. If she could get close enough, maybe she could steal a communicator or signal Earth's fleet. But that would mean crossing open ground filled with patrols. Her mind argued against it. Her body was weak. Her armor was failing. Every step would be pain. But the thought of doing nothing was worse. She thought of her team, Sergeant Holt, who never gave up, and Lieutenant Ross, who promised they'd make it home. They were all gone now. Mira clenched her jaw. "Not yet," she said. "I'm not done." She pushed herself up, using a broken metal beam for support. Her legs trembled, but she forced them to move. Step by step, she left the safety of the bunker's shadow and began moving through the ruins. The ground crunched softly under her boots. She ducked behind burned vehicles, moving slowly and silently. She could hear the Dominion soldiers laughing near their camp. "Humans are stubborn," one of them said. "They fight even when they know they've lost." Another laughed. "Then let them die tired." Mira's fists tightened. She wanted to answer them, to show them that humans did not die so easily, but she stayed quiet. Stealth was her only weapon now. As she moved past a fallen mech, she saw something glimmering beneath it. A small energy cell half buried in sand. Her eyes widened. Power. Hope. She knelt quickly and dug it out. It was a standard human power unit, cracked but still glowing faintly. She wiped the dust away and checked it. It had enough charge for a few minutes of use. Not much, but maybe enough to power her armor systems again. She pressed the cell into her wrist port. The armor hummed softly. The HUD flickered to life, weak but working. Heart rate, oxygen, radar. All limited but operational. "Welcome back," she whispered to herself. Now, with her systems partially restored, she could at least track enemy movements. Dots appeared on her radar. 10 hostiles nearby, more scattered farther out. She needed to move carefully. Then, suddenly, her radar pinged again. A faint human signal, very weak to the east. Mira froze. Could someone else have survived? She hesitated. Going east meant away from the enemy command post, but she couldn't ignore the possibility that another soldier was alive. She changed direction and started toward the signal, keeping low. The terrain was rough. Broken steel, craters, and smoldering ground. Each step sent pain through her body, but she didn't stop. After several minutes, she reached a destroyed shuttle. The signal was stronger here. She climbed inside through a broken hatch and looked around. A damaged medical bot lay on the floor, sparking occasionally. Near it, she found a human beacon, cracked but blinking faintly. That was the signal she had followed. "No survivors," she whispered sadly. The pilot's chair was empty. Whoever had sent the signal was gone. Still, she took the beacon. She might be able to repair it later. Outside, the wind began to pick up. Dust swirled around her, and the faint light of the alien camp glowed through the haze. Mira watched them from a distance. The Dominion soldiers were celebrating. They stood around fires, raising metal cups and shouting victory songs. To them, the war here was over. Commander Drexel spoke through a loudspeaker, his voice deep and certain. Let this victory mark the end of human defiance. They fought, yes, but they were never our equals. Mira listened silently, her jaw tightening. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her eyes burned with a quiet fire. She whispered to herself, "You think it's over? You haven't seen what humans do when they're cornered." Above her, a Dominion drone drifted by, scanning the area. Its lens flashed red as it passed over her hiding spot, then turned away. Mira stayed still until it disappeared into the clouds, then slowly she stood. Her silhouette was small against the burning horizon, but her heart felt heavy with purpose. The Dominion thought the battle was won. They thought humanity had fallen silent. But in that moment, Captain Mira Kane took her first step forward, and the human moved. The night wind swept across the ruins of Epsilon, carrying dust and ash through the still air. The fires from the battle had started to fade, leaving only glowing embers scattered across the dark ground. The alien soldiers of the Varn Dominion patrolled in groups of 3, their armor lights shining like small stars in the smoky distance. Hidden among the twisted metal and shattered walls, Captain Mira Kane crouched low, her breath steady and slow. The pain in her shoulder had grown worse, but she ignored it. She had already accepted the ache. It was proof that she was still alive. Her armor's display showed faint power readings from the cracked cell she had found earlier. It wasn't much, but it kept her systems running. The radar flickered softly, showing red dots, enemy patrols moving in patterns across the battlefield. She studied their routes carefully. She needed to do more than survive. She needed to do something. The Dominion had taken control of the outpost's communication relay. That meant they could send victory signals to their fleet, drawing more warships here. If that happened, Earth's reinforcements, who might still be heading toward Epsilon 4, would walk into a trap. Mira leaned against a broken wall, thinking. The relay station was about 2 kilometers north. Reaching it would be dangerous. Open ground, little cover, and constant patrols. But she had no choice, she whispered to herself. If they send that signal, it's over. For all of us. Her voice was almost lost in the wind. She looked at the faint stars above, the same stars that hung over Earth. For a moment, she imagined her home. The oceans, the cities, the laughter of people who believed humanity could stand among the stars as equals. She couldn't let those people down. Her hand brushed the side of her helmet. "This is Captain Mira Kane of the United Earth Fleet," she murmured softly, as if speaking to her fallen comrades. "I'm still here. I'll keep fighting." She checked her sidearm again, 1 bullet left. Not enough. She needed another weapon. Her eyes scanned the ground until she saw a Dominion plasma rifle lying near a dead alien. She crawled over quietly and picked it up. The weapon felt heavy and strange, made for larger hands, but she managed to hold it steady. The power meter still glowed faintly blue. "Good," she whispered. "Now we have teeth." Moving carefully, she began her slow journey toward the relay station. The path was silent except for the soft crunch of dust under her boots. Every few steps she stopped, listened, and moved again. She had learned long ago that patience could save a life. She reached the edge of a broken transport ship and looked out. The Dominion had built a temporary camp around the relay. Dozens of alien soldiers guarded it, walking between supply crates and power generators. Bright floodlights lit the entire area. Getting close would be impossible, unless she created a distraction. Mira's eyes drifted toward a line of fuel tanks near the wrecked human vehicles. If she could make them explode, it would draw the guards away long enough for her to slip inside the relay control tower. She searched her belt for anything useful. Her EMP mine was gone, but she still had fragments of a human drone she had found earlier. Its power core might still be active. After a few careful minutes of tinkering with broken wires and shards of metal, she managed to make a small timed charge. It wasn't perfect, but humans never needed perfect, only possible. "Let's hope this still works," she muttered. She set the device near the tanks and crawled away to a safe distance. Her heart beat faster as she pressed the activation switch. The timer blinked to life. 5 seconds later, a blinding flash erupted. The ground trembled as a fireball climbed into the night sky. The shockwave rolled through the valley, sending smoke and debris everywhere. Dominion soldiers shouted in alarm. "Explosion in Sector 7, one yelled. "Investigate." Mira didn't wait. She sprinted toward the relay tower while the aliens rushed toward the flames. The noise of the blast covered her footsteps. Her body ached with every movement, but she pushed forward. At the base of the tower, she found a half-open door. She slipped inside, her rifle ready. The interior was filled with humming machines and blinking consoles. She saw Dominion officers working at the control panels, unaware of her presence. She crouched behind a column and watched them. They were preparing to send a data burst, probably the victory signal. She had to stop it. Mira crawled closer. The plasma rifle hummed softly in her hands. She didn't want to fight if she could avoid it, but she knew she might not have a choice. She aimed carefully at the control board and fired. The rifle kicked hard, and a bolt of blue energy hit the panel, exploding in a shower of sparks. The Dominion officers shouted in confusion. "She's here!" "The human!" one of them cried. Mira rolled behind a crate as plasma shots flew past her, scorching the walls. She took a deep breath and leaned out, firing short bursts. Her aim wasn't perfect, but her shots hit enough to keep them ducking for cover. She moved quickly, crossing the room and reaching the main transmitter. The Dominion code on the screen was unreadable, but she found the manual override switch. Human engineers had installed it before the invasion. "Old habits," she whispered. "Always leave a backup." She pulled the lever, shutting down the transmitter just as the data burst was about to send. The signal died instantly. Outside, alarms started blaring. The aliens knew someone had sabotaged their system. Mira turned toward the exit, but froze when she saw a shadow blocking the doorway. A tall Varn soldier stepped inside, holding a long blade. His glowing eyes locked on her. "You should have stayed down, human," he said in a low, mechanical voice. Mira's mind raced. Her rifle's charge was nearly empty. The soldier stepped closer, confident. "I'm not good at staying down," she said. She waited until he raised his weapon, then kicked over a power unit beside her. The sparks from the damaged cables hit the fuel line, and a burst of fire exploded between them. The alien stumbled backward. Mira used the moment to dash past him, diving through the doorway as flames filled the room. The explosion threw her to the ground outside. For a few seconds, she couldn't hear anything but the ringing in her ears. When the sound returned, she heard the Dominion shouting in panic. "The tower is destroyed! Find the human!" Mira crawled behind a rock formation, coughing. Her armor was scorched, and the plasma rifle was gone, but the mission was done. The relay was destroyed. The Dominion couldn't call for reinforcements now. Still, she knew they would come for her. She had to move fast. Hours passed as she made her way back toward the ruined human lines. The sky began to lighten, showing the pale dawn of Epsilon 4. The once red clouds now glowed with orange and gold. It should have been beautiful, but all Mira could see was destruction. She stopped near the remains of a crashed gunship and rested against its side. Her body trembled from exhaustion. She had no food, little water, and her armor's energy was almost gone. But she refused to stop. She opened her wrist pad again, hoping for a signal. The screen flickered and then a faint sound broke through the static. To any surviving units, this is Fleet Command, Earth reinforcements en route. Hold your position if possible. Mira's eyes widened. The message was weak but real. Reinforcements were coming. She smiled faintly. You're not too late, she whispered. But before she could respond, her radar beeped sharply. A Dominion drone had picked up her signal. It hovered in the distance, scanning the area. She ducked behind the gunship wreck, holding her breath. The drone floated closer, its red sensor light sweeping across the ground. Mira stayed still, her heart pounding. She couldn't afford to be seen. The drone paused, then turned away, moving toward the Dominion camp. She waited until it disappeared before letting out a long, shaky sigh. Too close, she murmured. As she looked toward the horizon, she could see the Dominion base glowing under the morning light. They would soon discover what she had done, and when they did, they would come for her with everything they had. But she was ready. She pulled the broken human beacon from her pocket and began working on it again. Her hands were steady despite the pain. She had one goal: to send a stronger signal to the incoming human fleet. Her eyes were tired, but there was still fire in them. The same fire that had carried humanity from Earth into the stars. The same fire that refused to die. The aliens believed the war here was over. They thought the humans had no fight left. But Captain Mira Kane was still alive, and as long as she breathed, the spark of humanity would not die. The morning sun rose weakly over Epsilon 4, shining through clouds of smoke and dust. The battlefield looked lifeless from above, but under the ruins something still moved. Captain Mira Kane crouched beside a half-buried crate, trying to fix the broken beacon she had recovered the night before. Her hands were dirty, and her fingers trembled slightly from exhaustion. She hadn't slept in almost 2 days. Every sound outside made her flinch. The footsteps of Dominion patrols, the hum of drones, or the crackle of small fires still burning in the wreckage. She worked carefully, using a small knife to reconnect wires inside the beacon. The little device was cracked, but the power cell still held a faint charge. If she could get it working again, she could send a distress signal strong enough for Earth's fleet to detect. Come on, she whispered, touching the wires together. The light flickered once, then went dark. Mira sighed. Not yet, huh? She sat back and took a deep breath, looking toward the sky. The stars were fading as daylight took over. Somewhere beyond them, the human fleet was out there, her people. Maybe they thought she was dead. Maybe they thought everyone here was gone. She clenched her jaw. Not yet, she whispered again. Her eyes caught movement in the distance, 2 Dominion soldiers walking through the ruins. They were tall, wearing silver armor that glowed faintly under the morning sun. One of them carried a scanner, the other a long rifle. Mira froze. The patrols were getting closer each hour. The Dominion had realized someone was still alive after the relay station explosion. They were searching every corner. She quickly packed the beacon and crawled behind a broken engine core. The 2 soldiers stopped nearby, scanning the ground. No sign of human life, one said in his harsh alien tongue, but the commander believes one still breathes. The commander worries too much, the other replied. They are weak. The battle is over. Mira smiled faintly at their words. Humans had been called weak for centuries, by enemies, by other species, even by themselves. Yet somehow they always stood up again. As the patrol moved on, she waited a full minute before rising. Her back ached and her throat was dry. She reached for her canteen, took a small sip, and forced herself to focus. She needed supplies. The Dominion had taken most of the human stockpiles, but maybe something was left near the command bunker. It was risky, but she had no choice. The journey took hours. She moved slowly through the destroyed base, avoiding open ground and keeping to the shadows. The smell of burnt metal and dust filled the air. Every step was cautious. When she finally reached the old bunker, she found it half collapsed but not completely destroyed. The entrance was buried under rubble, but a narrow crack near the side allowed her to squeeze through. Inside, the air was cold and heavy. The walls were blackened, the lights dead. She switched on her helmet lamp and looked around. Old boxes and broken computers lay scattered across the floor. She kicked one open and smiled. Inside were ration packs, half melted but still sealed. Jackpot, she whispered. She tore one open and ate quickly. The taste was awful, but she didn't care. It gave her strength. As she ate, her eyes fell on a shattered display screen still faintly glowing. She walked over and brushed off the dust. A single image blinked weakly on the screen, the Earth flag, blue, green, and white. The sight made her stop. For a moment, the bunker wasn't cold anymore. Memories filled her mind. The ocean breeze, the sound of children playing in the streets of New Tokyo, the cheers of the crowd when she graduated from the Fleet Academy. She smiled softly. That was why she fought. Not for victory or glory, but for the home behind that flag. She whispered, "For Earth." Mira spent the next few hours repairing her armor and checking her remaining ammo. The Dominion rifle she had used was gone, but she found a damaged human carbine under a pile of rubble. The barrel was dented, but it still worked after a few adjustments. She also found an old maintenance drone, half broken but repairable. Its small camera and movement system still functioned. An idea began to form in her mind. "If I can fix you," she said, "you can scout for me." She spent the next hour patching it together, using wires and spare parts. When she switched it on, the little machine beeped and lifted a few inches off the ground, hovering weakly. "Good," she smiled. "Let's see what's out there." The drone floated out through a gap in the wall, its camera feed showing up on her wrist display. She guided it toward the Dominion base, careful not to get too close. What she saw made her heart sink. The Dominion had brought in more troops, dozens of them. Huge supply dropships landed in the center of their camp, unloading equipment and strange machinery. At the center stood a massive weapon, taller than a tower, glowing with blue energy. Her eyes widened. "An orbital cannon," she whispered. She remembered reports about the Dominion superweapon, a plasma cannon capable of hitting targets in orbit. If they activated it, they could destroy the human reinforcements before they even arrived. Her pulse quickened. She couldn't allow that. She guided the drone lower, trying to see the cannon's control structure. But suddenly the feed turned static and the signal was jammed. Dominion soldiers had detected it. She shut the drone off immediately and hid behind a console. Her wrist pad beeped. The enemy had traced the transmission. They were sending scouts in her direction. Mira cursed under her breath. She grabbed her gear and slipped out of the bunker's side exit, moving fast through the ruins. Within minutes, she could hear the distant sound of alien voices. They were close. She climbed up a slope of rubble, reaching the higher ground. From there, she could see the horizon, the rising sun painting the sky orange and gold. The light glinted off her cracked armor. She stood there for a moment, catching her breath. Every instinct told her to hide again, to wait for rescue. But she couldn't. The cannon had to be stopped before it charged fully. She pulled the beacon from her pack and looked at it. If she could reach higher ground, maybe she could send a stronger signal through the upper atmosphere, warning the fleet about the cannon. Her radar beeped again. The patrols were spreading out. They were hunting her like a ghost. "Let's make them chase a real ghost," she muttered. That night, Mira moved silently through the alien camp's outer ring. She had painted her armor with ash to blend with the terrain. Every shadow was her ally, every step a risk. The Dominion soldiers were alert now. Lights swept across the field and drones circled the skies. But Mira had grown up on Earth, where humans learned to adapt to everything, to deserts, storms, and the dark. She moved like smoke, near one of the smaller stations. She saw a group of Dominion engineers working on a power node connected to the cannon. That was her chance. She waited until they left, then crawled forward and placed a small explosive charge she had built from leftover drone parts. It wasn't strong enough to destroy the cannon, but it would send a message that the humans were not gone. She set the timer and slipped away. Minutes later, a brilliant flash lit the night. The power node exploded, and the Dominion camp erupted in confusion. Soldiers shouted, alarms blared, and searchlights swept the ruins. From her hiding place, Mira smiled faintly. It wasn't victory, but it was something more. Proof that one human could still make them afraid. As the chaos spread, she pulled out her beacon again and climbed to a nearby ridge. Her fingers shook as she activated it. The light blinked weakly, then stabilized. A signal pulsed into the sky. "This is Captain Mira Kane of the United Earth Fleet," she whispered into her helmet mic. "If anyone hears this, the Dominion is building an orbital cannon. They plan to destroy you before you reach orbit. Do not approach from standard vectors. Kane out." The beacon flickered, then went dark, Power drained, but she had done it. The message was sent. Far below, Dominion Commander Drexel Varn stared at the explosion with disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. "How does one human cause this much trouble?" He slammed his fist against the console. "Find her? I want her alive." His soldiers saluted and scattered into the night. Back on the ridge, Mira watched the stars begin to shine again. Her armor was cracked, her energy gone, but her eyes were full of fire. She whispered softly, "They'll come. They'll hear me." Then she turned away, fading into the smoke-filled darkness, a lone spark of defiance against an empire. And across the empty desert of Epsilon-Bar, the echo of Earth's courage still lingered. The moon of Epsilon hung low over the horizon, casting pale silver light across the battlefield. The fires from the previous night had almost died out, leaving only a few smoldering ruins as witnesses to the human struggle. Captain Mira Kane moved silently through the debris, her body weary but her mind sharp. Every step she took was calculated. The Dominion had spread its forces across the battlefield after the relay explosion. Drones patrolled the skies, their red sensors glowing faintly in the moonlight. She had only one thought: survive long enough to guide the reinforcements and stop the orbital cannon. The night air was bitter and filled with dust, but Mira ignored the discomfort. Every second counted. She moved through the shadows, slipping between ruined vehicles and broken walls, her eyes scanning for movement. From her vantage point, she could see the Dominion camp. Soldiers moved in patterns, but not as efficiently as before. Morale was low. The power node explosion had shaken them. Some whispered nervously about a human ghost haunting the ruins. "They say one human survived." One soldier muttered to another. "She kills without mercy." "She is only one," the other replied. "She cannot do much," Mira smiled faintly. One human was all it took to change the course of this battle. She had already proven it. She moved closer to the cannon's control structure. The structure towered over the surrounding camp like a dark monolith, its energy core glowing faintly blue even in the moonlight. Her HUD displayed patrol patterns. She counted them carefully. 4 guards on the outer perimeter, 3 inside, and 2 drones circling overhead. She waited. Patience was her weapon. From her pack, she pulled a small EMP device she had cobbled together from broken drone parts. It was fragile and unstable, but if used correctly, it could disable electronics in a wide radius. Mira set the device down, connecting it to a timer she had improvised. She backed into the shadows, watching the patrols carefully. The first drone drifted too close. She held her breath. The drone passed without noticing the faint light of the EMP device. Seconds later, the timer clicked down to 0. The device activated, sending a pulse of energy through the immediate area. Lights on the cannon flickered and died. Drones crashed to the ground, sparking. The Dominion soldiers shouted in confusion, waving weapons wildly. Mira didn't wait. She moved forward, using the chaos as cover. Her boots made no sound on the dusty ground. She kept low, hugging shadows, until she reached the outer door of the control structure. The door was locked with alien security protocols, but she had expected that. Using a small hacking module she had salvaged from the relay station, she started overriding the system. Her hands moved quickly, guided by training and instinct. The screen blinked. Access denied. She didn't panic. One of the things that made humans dangerous even to stronger species was creativity under pressure. She rerouted the module to a secondary power line. Sparks flew and the console rebooted. Access granted flashed across the screen. Mira smiled. Inside the control room, panels blinked weakly, monitors showing readouts in alien code. She didn't understand all of it, but she knew enough to trigger the safety shutdown. A few more taps and swipes, and the massive orbital cannon went dark. Outside, Dominion soldiers shouted. They had noticed the loss of the cannon's power. Some pointed toward the structure, realizing someone was inside. Mira didn't hesitate. She ducked behind the console and moved toward the ventilation shaft. The moment she stepped inside, a pair of guards entered the room. Plasma rifles raised, they scanned the area carefully. She crawled through the narrow shaft, her breathing steady. The sound of metal scraping echoed softly, but it was faint enough to go unnoticed. When she emerged on the far side, she found herself on a ridge overlooking the camp. From here, she could see more soldiers rushing to investigate the cannon failure. Patrols were being doubled. She smiled faintly. Humans had a word for this: chaos as cover. As the night progressed, Mira used the shadows to move between key points of the Dominion camp. She sabotaged power lines, disrupted communications, and left small explosive traps behind. Each time a patrol stumbled upon one of her traps, fear spread quickly among the soldiers. They whispered of the ghostly human who could strike anywhere, a single shadow capable of destroying their carefully built fortifications. Mira didn't have to fight them directly. Humans had always been skilled at using the environment and intellect to overcome strength. She had grown up studying military history, learning about tactics and strategy. Every step she took, every trap she set was a lesson in human resilience. She moved closer to the central supply depot. Inside, the Dominion kept extra power cores, ammunition, and control devices. Disabling this supply chain would delay their ability to repair the cannon and reinforce their troops. Mira crawled beneath a fallen beam, then carefully lifted a cover on one of the power boxes. Using the leftover material she carried, she rigged a series of small charges, each time to detonate within minutes. Once set, she retreated to a safe distance. She watched as one of the patrols wandered too close. The charges went off, sending sparks flying. A minor explosion shook the depot, sending soldiers scrambling. Mira didn't stop to watch. She moved deeper into the shadows toward the next target, the communication hub. By dawn, the Dominion was in disarray. Soldiers patrolled nervously and drones hovered low, scanning the area. Commander Drexel had been informed of the sabotage. "They say the human is everywhere," a soldier whispered. "She cannot be caught." Drexel's mandibles clicked in frustration. He had underestimated humans. Only one survivor, he thought. And yet she had caused more damage than entire squads of elite soldiers could. Meanwhile, Mira reached another high ridge, overlooking the entire camp. From here she could see the horizon, pale light of the sun beginning to rise, dust swirling around the destroyed battlefield. She pulled out the beacon she had repaired and tested it again. The signal was weak, but still capable of reaching orbit if she could find a better location. Her fingers brushed the device. The thought crossed her mind. Maybe the reinforcements were already near the system. Maybe Earth's fleet would arrive in time, but she couldn't wait. Humans never waited. They acted. She activated the beacon and sent a coded message. To incoming Earth fleet, Dominion orbital cannon disabled. Patience is required. Approach cautiously. Captain Mira Kane controlling surface operations. Kane out. The beacon blinked once, twice, then held steady. Her message was in the system. The fleet would know she was alive. She didn't feel relief, only determination. The Dominion still had numbers, and she was only one human. But humans had always faced impossible odds, and somehow they always found a way. Hours passed. Mira moved again, creeping toward another patrol post. Along the way, she discovered a wounded Dominion soldier, collapsed among the rubble. He was human-sized and armored, but Mira knew better than to show mercy now. If she was caught, her mission would fail. She avoided him silently, slipping past without notice. Every move was precise, every breath measured. She had learned to move like a shadow, to think like a predator, and to act like a human who refused to quit. By mid-morning, the Dominion was panicked. Reports of sabotage, missing drones, and explosions kept coming from all over the camp. Soldiers whispered about the ghost human. Some believed it was more than one. Others thought it was supernatural. Mira used the chaos to her advantage. She moved quickly, keeping low, traveling from shadow to shadow, always staying one step ahead. As the day wore on, Mira found herself on a high ridge overlooking the cannon once again. She could see the engineers trying to repair the damage. They were confident, but the human ghost had already shown them that perfection was impossible. She crouched there, her silhouette blending with the dark rocks. Her armor was battered, her energy low, but her mind was clear. She didn't need to fight alone, not anymore. Her message had been sent. Help was coming, and yet she remained vigilant. Humans never stopped, never surrendered, and never accepted defeat. The Dominion might have believed the battle was won, but one human still lived. One human still moved, and from the shadows, Captain Mira Kane would make sure that their fear of humanity was well earned.